Hey everybody, it's Jim from rangestation.com. I did a quick walk around video of the 2019 Ranger when I first got it, the truck that we're now calling the Lone Ranger. But I didn't do a video of it since I've got it set up for adventure travel. I wanted to do a video of it before I left to go to the Overland Expo in Flagstaff, Arizona, but I didn't get a chance. I was gone for about a week, camped the whole time I was gone, and hit some forest roads, sand dunes, and got to use the truck off-road. Got to see some amazing sights while I was gone. But now that I'm back, I just want to do a quick video and show you the modifications that I made. So the Ranger still retains its stock suspension, but I added these Cooper Discoverer STT Pro tires. These are 265/70/17s, which equate to about 31.9 by 10.7 or a 32 by 10 3/4 inch tire. These tires have a 3-2 lug pattern, so you have 3 and then 2, and the ideal is that it's supposed to not make it as loud when it goes down the road and gives it some stability, but it still has a very aggressive mud terrain. Also, the tire has these little dimples in here. Those dimples are supposed to help release the mud so that the mud doesn't get packed in between the treads. And these little ribs through here are there to help remove rocks, keep rocks from getting stuck and lodged inside of your lugs. So on the front of the truck, you have the 288 watt 20-inch LED light bar made by Nylite that I have mounted on just a homemade bracket made out of some L brackets and some angle, and it's controlled by a wireless remote, which I've showed you in another video, and then the two 4-inch Nylite LEDs up on the hood that are held in place with some bolt-on brackets. So when I did the first video, I didn't have the Yakima rack and tent on the bed. But here you can see that Ford finally got it installed. I've slept a few nights in this thing and it is absolutely amazing, and I love that I can set it up in pretty much less than 2 minutes. I really don't understand why Ford doesn't add tow hooks to the rear of their four-wheel drive trucks, especially on the FX4 model such as this. So to compensate for that, you can see where I got this shackle receiver hitch on here to give me some place to hook up tow straps if I should get stuck, or better yet, if I should have to pull somebody else out. Since I'm going to be taking this truck to a lot of different places, and because it gets a lot of attention wherever I go, I wanted to add some advertisement on the back so you can see where I've got the rangestation.com/2019-Ranger-Adventure. Anybody that goes to that address will be linked to the thread online where I show all the modifications that I've done and add my adventures as I go. And then on the other side here, you can see where I added the Facebook and Instagram names on here for people, as well as hashtag 2019 Ranger Adventure, which I put on most of my adventure photos on the Instagram account. So also looking at the back of the Ranger, you'll notice where there are two 5x4-inch LED work lights on the back of the truck. These are also made by Nylite. Now when I added these, I used the existing hardware on the Yakima rack, and then I ran the wire through a hole here that's in the bed, and if you go all the way down to the frame rail, there is actually a plug for an accessory jack that is an option in the corner of the bed back here. This Ranger doesn't have one, but the plug's down there, so what I did was I tapped the harness into that plug. The wiring harness that I used for these rear LED work lights also came with a switch with an adhesive back. It came with the wireless remote and the switch. So what I did was stuck the switch to the bottom of the tailgate. That way, if I'm outside the truck walking around, and I want rear work lights, I can simply push the button on the bottom of the tailgate, make them come on. If I'm inside the truck and I need to back up or want some added lights to the rear, then I just use the wireless remote. I wanted to try to keep the wiring harness neat. I didn't want wiring running all over the back of the truck. So you can see where I took the wiring and I actually ran it through the top of the Yakima rack here, so it's all completely concealed, and I just used some zip ties to kind of hold the wire snug against the rack, you know, where it runs from the light to the corners here and up and around. So in the back you can see where I have a Scepter 5-gallon gas can and a Scepter 5-gallon water can. I also have a Lifetime hard-sided cooler, which is also grizzly bear proof and will hold ice for up to 7 days. This is actually a great deal on a cooler. I found this over at Walmart for less than $100. So if you look, you can see where this cooler is actually sitting on some plywood that I used some spray on bed liner so that it just kind of blends in with the rest of the bed. I couldn't drill any holes into the truck to mount anything, so what I did is added that 7/16 inch plywood, and I doubled it up in a section between this cooler and that Conoco toolbox. The section where it's doubled up is where I mounted my high lift jack. So I have two small bungee cords that I use for the lid of this box. That way, anytime I'm trying to get into the box, I use those little bungee cords to hold it up so it's not trying to close on me as I'm digging stuff out of there. And then I found two of these little battery operated LED lights that I stuck to the bottom side of this tent with some Velcro. They're just push lights. There's one there, and there's one right over where the cooler sits. So at night, if I need to get into this box or into that cooler, I can tap those lights and have light under here to see what I'm doing, what I'm getting into. So this Conoco box is held in the bed by carriage bolts that run through the bottom of the plywood that it sits on. Except it's not wing nutted, it's actually held down with a nut and lock washer. But I use these straps back here. I put some eye bolts into the side of the Conoco box, and I use these ratchet straps running to the factory tie down to hold the box in place. The whole point of that is because the box is mounted to the plywood, but the plywood's loose. By anchoring the box with the ratchet straps, it keeps this whole unit from sliding around. And then the ratchet strap at the other end of the bed, where the cooler is, that holds the cooler down, helps keep everything in place. So between these two straps hold the Conoco box and the strap that goes over and holds the cooler down is what keeps this whole thing tightly placed inside the bed so it doesn't come flying out. Here you can see where this Igloo 6-gallon cooler is held in place by the ratchet strap that holds this side of the Conoco box in place. So here you can see the high lift jack. The high lift jack rests on its base, and then the rest of the jack is supported by two 1/2-inch carriage bolts. The carriage bolts come up through the bottom of the plywood. They have a nut and lock washer that acts as a spacer to hold it up a level where I want it, and then it uses a metal washer, a rubber washer, and a wing nut to hold it down. The point of the rubber washer is to keep the wing nut from coming loose when I'm out driving around, especially if I'm off-road and shaking the truck. You'll also see where I have some X-Bolt traction mats. If you look towards the left side of it there, you can see the head of a bolt coming out. I actually bolted these to the front of the Conoco box, and just like the high lift jack, these use a metal washer, a flat washer, and a wing nut to secure them to the box. I simply open the lid of the box, reach down, undo the wing nuts, and pull the tracks off if I should need them to get unstuck. I have an Igloo 6-gallon water cooler back here. And on the other side you'll see where I have a shovel that's held in place with some Quick Fists. These Scepter cans are actually held in place with the factory tie downs in the back of the bed and use a ratchet strap to hold them in place. You can see where I put some pipe insulation around the brackets for the Yakima rack so that the plastic can isn't rubbing against the metal brackets. You can also see on the ratchet where I use some of that pipe insulation to put between the ratchet and the can to keep the ratchet from digging into the can, and then just wrap the excess strap around it to keep it from coming off. I also use a ratchet strap to hold down this lifetime cooler. Alright, so here you can see I have a GoPro suction cup mount on the left side of the windshield. I have a Garmin GPS. I have a windshield mount for my cell phone so that I can use my cell phone as a camera or video camera as I'm driving. Of course, the factory GPS, and then my Samsung tablet that I use for GPS navigation. And then you also see where I have the little key fob down there mounted on the console. That is the remote for the 20-inch LED bar on the front. It's slid closed so you can't see the little buttons in it. So it may seem redundant that I have 3 different GPS units in here. I have the Garmin unit, I have the Ford factory navigation, and then I have my tablet. So on my tablet, you'll see where I have the Gaia GPS and then I have Google Maps. And I primarily use Google Maps. And a nice thing that I like about Google Maps is that I can get a satellite view, I can get a train view. It's just easier to search for things in Google Maps than it is to Ford navigation. Also, I can create a route in Google Maps and follow it on my navigation. So let's say I'm going to do the Trans-American Trail and I've plotted the course out, or really any trail or any course. If you plot it out on Google Maps online, then I can access it here on my tablet and just follow that route when I'm driving. It's just a static line that I follow. So I wouldn't pay for the navigation that comes from the factory from Ford. However, since this vehicle has it, there is one feature that I do like. The system comes with Android Auto, and by using Android Auto, I can access the apps on my phone, or at least some of the apps on my phone, such as Spotify, but more importantly to me is I can access the Google Maps feature on my phone. So on the screen here you can see where it's in Android Auto mode, and if I do the little direction sign icon here, it's going to take me to Google Maps, and as you can see, I've got it set on the satellite view. Surely that right there is already a better option than what comes from the factory. I can take it off satellite view and just use it as a regular street map. So the features that you have in Google Maps you can get through Android Auto and use in place of the Ford navigation. The only downside is that if you create a map in Google Maps, the Android Auto app won't access the maps you create in Google Maps. Also, since we're talking about Google Maps, is one other thing I want to discuss, and that is downloading Google Maps. So my tablet comes with a built-in GPS, and you can see the blue dot showing where I'm at. However, if I didn't have a cell signal here, it would show the blue dot. It would just have a blank screen because it doesn't have internet access to load the map. If I know where I'm going ahead of time, okay, so let's say I'm going to take a trip and I know that I'm going to be going to some remote areas and there's a likelihood that I'm not going to have a good cell phone signal. What I can do is actually go in and save the map sections for those areas to my tablet, so that when I'm traveling and lose the cell service for those areas, my tablet can still see the maps because I have them saved on the tablet.
That's all, folks.